Hi there. So,
Hi there.
if you want to introduce yourself to the Punk Patriots audience.
So I love your shirt, by the way.
Thank you.
My name is Katie. My full name is Katie Klabusik, which most people find unpronounceable and unspellable. So I blog, tweets, and Facebook and do all those things under Katie Speak. I blog about whatever makes me angry, though my rhetoric doesn't tend to be angry. I seem to need to be really angry about something to sit down and write about it. And after 10 years of not writing or publishing anything, last February when Susan G. Komen pulled their funding from Planned Parenthood, I heard a lot of crazy bullshit being said about the reality of women's reproductive health, and that somehow abortion was liberal birth control and we should all support Komen now that they're not supporting the abortion agenda. And I was like, that doesn't sound like real life to me. My story, that's not my experience, that's just not reality. And there's no reality going on in the women's health debate, which I'm sure your readers, listeners, followers have found to be true in just about every important category of both public policy and life. So I was just looking to bring a little common sense and reality to the debate.
And so how long have you been blogging over there?
Just a year. Just hit my first year anniversary. Although the first couple months I didn't know what to do with it. I had like 50 Twitter followers and didn't know how to push it out. I knew discussing my unplanned pregnancy and my decision to terminate that pregnancy was going to cause some backlash in my own personal life. But it was safe for me to talk about, so I wanted to. There are a lot of women who live places where it's not physically safe for them. They'll have repercussions in their jobs, in their families, in their marriages. So I was prepared to take that heat, but I didn't know how to push it out. And so it's been a year of figuring that out and building some good connections like you, and finding other people who are really interested in talking about not just that issue, but other issues and how they really affect real people.
I guess I'll kind of break the fourth wall a little bit here, in that we tried doing this interview once before and we had audio issues. And you had mentioned before that you had to, at that time in your life, you had to choose between birth control and food. And I find like, I mean, I just ran for state senate recently, and I found that it's very easy to look at every other issue that you can think of through the prism of economic justice. I think it's really important to make those sorts of connections, that women's rights issues are related to economic justice in the same way that LGBT issues are related to economic justice, that you have a lot of homeless teens, etc., that the environmental low-income people are the people most hit by or globally are going to be the most hit by climate change. We're already seeing massive immigration or migration from the global south due to climate change.
Well, they're the most hit by every issue and the most ignored by every politician, right?
Absolutely.
Most politicians get their money from the rich, and they talk a lot about the middle class. They don't talk very much about the poor. It's unpopular to talk about the poor. It sounds pessimistic. It doesn't make a good, stump speech for some reason. But you made a really good point, and I just watched your America Loves to Hate Women video, which, by the way, is awesome and sadly still relevant, which is what I'm finding about my stuff from last year, is I'm like, oh, I did a piece on that, oh my god. It's
right?
I was so sure after the election and after all the pandering to the base on the right, we get to talk about some other things, but we're still hearing about rape on the right. It's just the craziest thing. But it's not just women who are affected by reproductive rights issues. It's all society in every way imaginable. And studies across the world have shown that the single fastest way to pull an entire population out of poverty is to give women access to reproductive rights of all kinds, birth control and abortion assistance. You can, not only do women not get pregnant as early, they're not stuck in bad relationships, they can get educated, contribute more to society. I mean, this has happened over and over and over again. So as to pretend that women's reproductive health is not an economic issue is just craziness. And it happened during the last election. Ann Romney's big push when she went out was talking about women don't want to hear about birth control. They're interested in economic issues.
That is an economic issue.
disconnect. Like, I don't really
Yeah.
care about economic issues from you. If you want to know what it's like, I'll tell you about working 100 hours a week and still having to grocery shop at the dollar store. And I did that with 2 degrees.
Mhm.
I can't imagine what even more underprivileged, like people who started more underprivileged than I did, are
Mhm.
going through with no hope,
Mhm.
no way to get further, and then to find themselves in the position I did, having lost 3 jobs in less than a year, and having to pick between bread and orange juice and birth control. I mean, that's just, you eat. That's what you do.
Mhm. 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 Um, so I guess, well, the next question on my list of questions is how did you get involved in politics? Like, were you always a political person? Like, were your parents political people? I had that benefit growing up that my mom was very involved in the community at the local level. I don't know, what turned you on to politics?
That would have been helpful. The only, I'm a Gen Xer, and I grew up in red state Indiana, and
Mhm.
the only political anything I remember is that my dad in his downstairs office had to do caucus button. That's literally like the thing I can remember from my childhood having anything. And I
Uh-huh.
remember my grandma for the first time in her life at 80 something voting for Clinton for the second term because
Mhm.
she knew I was going to need student loans and grants. But those
Mhm.
were like the only discussion of politics growing up.
Mhm.
Then I got a journalism degree and found myself mostly on the sidelines. I had a really good background and really good professors who taught us not the false equivalency, but to tell the truth,
Mhm.
but not to participate. So I had personal opinions, but wasn't talking about them publicly.
Mhm.
So after years of that kind of training, it really took until the Bush-Kerry election and my sort of watching the fallout of the first presidential election I could vote in, us ending up in a couple of wars, my finding myself in that dollar store grocery shopping economic situation,
Mhm.
wondering how people could vote for Bush. Like this is like we got like how is this happening? Like are you listening to the same debates I am? And I
Mhm.
think it took that to get me angry, but then several more years for me to have the literal physical time to do a lot of reading and research and really get involved and that sort of culminated in me bothering to participate in the 2008 election.
Cool. How did you participate in that election? Did you do volunteer work? Did you do
Yeah.
blogging about it?
I did some volunteering. I was still working 3 jobs, so I
Mhm.
didn't have a ton of time. But I lived in blue state Illinois, at least at a presidential level. Illinois is a pretty safe state. So much to my mother's chagrin, I would go home and stay at my parents' and then help get out the vote in my hometown. And there was something really rewarding about the day of the election, standing with signs and having people honk and wave in support of an African American candidate. And I remember my freshman year of college, there being a KKK rally in my downtown.
Oh wow.
But that's one of those examples, right, of economics trumping everything. Like
Mhm.
the RV industry in my hometown is like 50% of people's economic reality, and when that industry took a huge hit, as anything recreational did, unemployment was so high. People were like, "I'll vote for that guy." Like
Mhm.
whatever, anything
Mhm.
that could get me a job, maybe.
Mhm.
Um, and it wasn't really until I couldn't figure out what to do with it. Still wasn't all that comfortable being off the sidelines just because of the mindset of my background and my training. And then it was getting angry enough about something that was very personal to me, the Komen Planned Parenthood fight, that made me say, well, you know what? Um, I can talk about that. And so I should. Like, we should really be talking about the reality. And I found myself talking about women's issues a lot because
Mhm.
that seems to be what people respond to the best.
Mhm.
Though I've gotten angry about Stand Your Ground and NDAA and NATO and all those things as well. But I seem to keep coming back to this.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and it's unfortunate that you have to. So speaking about all of that, that goes right into the next question. You've recently posted over on the Punk Patriots Facebook page about the Violence Against Women Act, and there's been some people saying that it's a conspiracy to centralize power in the federal government. So I guess if you could talk about what is the Violence Against Women Act, why is it important, and I guess if you could address those concerns that people are bringing up.
Yeah, I went through and read some of that just to make sure I knew exactly what their concerns were,
Mm-hmm.
and I get it. Like I get the fear of the federal government, like extra overreach. It's been a
Mm-hmm.
big problem. Things like education. I mean, the No
Mm-hmm.
Child Left Behind thing is a huge
Mm-hmm.
clusterfuck.
Mm-hmm.
But what people have to understand is that if you're our generation mostly grew up with this, but I had to realize that when I was in high school still, there were a lot of things that weren't really illegal. If you were married, you could pretty much have sex with your wife anytime you wanted, even if she didn't want to, and at no point would that be considered rape under the law. That was really important, as was stalking becoming a federal issue. If I have a stalker or a former abuser and I move across state lines, he can follow me, and there would be no mechanism for the local law enforcement agencies in my previous state and my current state to talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
There also wasn't much in the way of resources for training for people answering domestic violence emergency calls, or even calls other places, like understanding and recognizing when you're dealing with someone who is a domestic violence victim and being able to navigate that very complicated relationship between the people. I mean, let's face it, our law enforcement ends up doing a lot of family therapy when they have to answer calls like that and figuring out who's telling the truth and what the reality of the situation is. And until VAWA was passed, there just weren't resources for that. There's now a national domestic violence hotline, which is probably one of the things that people got concerned about. But what that does in the 20,000 calls a day it answers is direct people to their local resources. So it's basically a national database of people who are trained to answer those calls, who also know about the local places to send people.
Mm-hmm.
And without the federal money, a lot of the red states, which are also in the red in their state budgets, would have no way to pay for it. I mean, California, New York, Illinois probably fine, but a lot of the states who get back, $1.50 on the dollar that they pay in federal taxes, or they're getting a lot of those resources back. I mean, to tie it back to the abortion is an economic issue, Mississippi only has one abortion clinic. What happens to the domestic violence victim that's 4 hours away from the clinic? That now, because VAWA didn't get passed, can't call a hotline and get help locally, and can't get to the clinic. She literally is stuck in the middle of nowhere with no resources, which is what's happened since January 1st when this bill wasn't reauthorized.
So one of the things a lot of my less political friends will say to me every so often is, "Oh, there's so much going on in the world, I don't even know what to pay attention to."
Right.
So what other issues do you care about, and how do you choose how to spend your time on various issues? Like how do you choose how to, because we all have limited time.
Right.
How do you budget that time?
That's really frustrating, and I initially found that really paralyzing. And I mean, you can literally be paralyzed by the amount of stuff that needs to get done. No idea both how to do it or where to start, or do you ignore this issue over there that you care about? Like I thought that by now, because I'm post-Roe generation and post-Earth Day generation, that we would have sort of had a societal agreement that climate and a livable planet would be important, and also health would be important. I find myself playing a lot of defense, which is really frustrating. Like, we shouldn't be protecting rights we already have. So I wish I was spending more time on the climate. I wish I was spending more time on healthcare, which should be universal, which may freak out some of the libertarian.
Good.
We could be redirecting our resources a lot better if we were taking care of problems before they showed up. But what I've discovered in sort of trying a little bit of everything, volunteering everywhere, and then discovering which volunteer things I always showed up to, which ones took priority just by my schedule, was a lot of trying a lot of everything. And the things that I either found most personally rewarding or found that my skill set was most helpful to. It doesn't mean I don't care about other things. I certainly care about everything. It's just that I've discovered that my voice and my skill set seem really, really catered to just by my 33 years of life experience. This is an issue that I can speak with on authority, that I can be active with on authority. And most people will find that. there's stuff in your community that needs you. It could be an animal shelter. It could be something like adult literacy at your local library. I promise they have a program. That's probably 2 hours a week or 2 hours every other week. It's not something you have to spend all of your time doing. But there's the time that you spend volunteering or active in something is amplified. It feels like more time than you're actually spending. It's unbelievably rewarding, and you'll find you get addicted to it. So you'll end up either looking for other ways to be active in that issue that you're really designed for and passionate about, or you'll find other ways connected to it, because you'll meet other people at that thing you're volunteering at, and they will help you connect to stuff that you can get involved in.
Killing you!
You're watching The Punk Patriot, to life, liberty, in pursuit of a less fucked up government. If you like this video, please donate what you think it was worth. You can find the link down in the description of the video. Also, let me know what you think in the comments section. Please share this video with your friends and your enemies. The only way that this channel will expand is through word of mouth and people like you. So thank you very much.